All right. Welcome back to this very, very important interview and an exclusive, something that I've been working on 3 years to make happen. The last probably 50 to 100 interviews, you all heard me talk about minds. I've actually been talking about this for the last 3 years and been encouraging you all to please join. Leave Facebook behind. Join in the free speech platform where actually it seems to be there are far more intelligent people. So I figured who better to speak to about this than the founder of Minds and the one and only Mr. Bill Ottman. Bill, thank you so much for doing this and welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine and all of ours, believe me here. Okay, let's first talk about what made you create this platform. I mean, you started in 2011. From what I know, at least Twitter then was not shadow banning in other people I know. So what was it that then you said, okay, let's create our own?
We always knew from the beginning that, even though the shadow banning wasn't as bad back then, they weren't as sophisticated with their algorithms, but there was still like zero transparency. All of the software was closed source. There was questionable privacy practices and surveillance, and I wouldn't say they ever had a fully free speech policy. I think it used to be better. And so, just based on the fact that they weren't open source, we knew that there had to be an open source social network. So from the beginning, that's kind of what it's been all about. Just the hyper transparency. Anyone can look at our code, look at our algorithms, take it, make their own app, help us collaborate on it. And, since then, I think most of the big tech sites have locked down their terms of service, and now it's pretty much just pure dystopia.
Yeah. Another major thing I wanted to ask you, which you started to just talking about this, the open source, the fact that other people can see the coding, can work on it, can contribute, and you even mentioned or create their own platform. I recently found out that Elon Musk with Tesla Technologies, actually, it's all open source. So if Ford could easily look at his coding, and then it's not proprietary. Is that the downside for you?
Well, that's not entirely true. So Tesla opened their patents. So they basically, they didn't open the source code of Teslas or, the actual blueprints of the batteries or cars. They basically open the patents, meaning that they're not going to sue competitors for creating similar products. I wish that they would open source all the code, but no. There were a bunch of headlines that came out around the time that happened that were sort of saying that. So I understand why you perceive that, but Elon definitely knows about why open source matters. You saw the other day, with I don't know if you saw the thing about the global hunger. I forget if it was like the world hunger, some hunger charity. He was saying, yeah, I'll give you $6 billion, but you have to open source all your financials.
Yes. The hunger. Yeah. Which is 6 billion. Really? You got 8.2 billion.
They just didn't really respond.
Yeah.
I mean, he wanted them to post it like publicly right then. The guy was saying, hey, no, let's go, let's talk. We can work this out. And so, but the point was he was making was, no, just do it now. Let social media vet it. And, we'll go from there. But they don't seem to want to do that.
Have you been receiving pressure to ban people? Or I noticed you have some moderating system in place, 5-man jury, as opposed to having these algorithms which will automatically make sure your audience is shadow banned. I'll give you an example. Recently, I just interviewed Foster Gamble, the billionaire heir to the Procter & Gamble. And because we were talking about some things that don't fit with the mainstream media, I knew I was going to be demonetized for that, at least interview, but then being labeled a misinformationist when I wasn't even saying any of the things. The point is, it's like, I don't know if 8 times out of 10, am I just going to lose the ability to share this information?
Yeah, I mean, well, all right. So a couple things there. Yeah, didn't Foster make that movie Thrive?
Thrive, and
Yeah,
Thrive 2 just came out.
just came out. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
remember that.
Great guy.
Yeah, no, he's definitely nice. I feel like I've communicated with him a couple times in the past. But yeah, I mean, the whole misinformation thing is ridiculous because, even as we just saw with what happened with Rittenhouse, I mean, people were getting banned, regardless of what you think of that, doesn't matter. The point is that people were getting banned for, saying that it was self-defense prior to the trial. And now, it a jury and, court said that it was. And so what happened to all those people who got banned? And the same thing applies for all kinds of hot button issues like COVID or conspiracies, obviously,
Exactly what Foster was talking about.
Yeah. It's a very convenient label because, what is misinformation? It's basically just anything that they want it to be that they feel like, being against their terms of service. There's no law against misinformation. There's a law against, defamation.
That's right.
And, certain things like that. But misinformation is just way too general of a bucket. Similarly, we've seen with COVID, there have been plenty of subtopics that have been banned. And then, later on, it came out that there was actually some peer-reviewed research that backs that up. And so we just take the stance, look, we're going to stick to the First Amendment as closely as we possibly can. We have a jury for the appeal system. And, we're always just going to be...
Oh, your in-house jury. Gotcha.
Jury, yeah. And, well, no, so if a user feels that they were wrongly, flagged NSFW or banned, like, look, we're always going to be more human than big tech. Like,
yeah.
Anyone listening to this, like, if you or anyone you feel has been, wrongly enforced against, like, just, like, we like go to support.minds, like there's a whole section for appeals. Like, we will always commit to being more human. Because look, like, I mean, mistakes do get made once in a while. We do have people constantly like attacking the network. And so, I'm not going to say it's never happened, but we will always be more accessible. And if it's, within the law, it's going to be fine. And additionally, we're trying to create systems like fully decentralized infrastructure where it's not even our decision. Ultimately, we want to remove ourselves from the equation entirely.
Yeah.
Because that's sort of the worst part about the job for me, is kind of having to, because there are certain edge cases that become very contentious. Like there's this one sort of very blurry topic, and I don't want to get too deep into this, but there is a subset of anime which is like, it's called lolly, and we've taken the stance that, because it's illegal in some states in the US under obscenity laws, like we're just we can't go there. But it's basically like anime child porn.
Yeah.
So we're, that's an area where, like, I mean, if it's against the law someplace in the US, but like if any other country ever came to us and they said, you need to take this down, which, they have, we'll just say, no, absolutely not. Like, we're a US company. We're going to go by the US law. And that's what most of the other social networks do, is they have a different version of Twitter and YouTube and
in every
Facebook in every country.
Yeah.
And
like Saudi Arabia, for instance.
Absolutely. And the terms that they have in those countries are way worse than in the US. So, this is pure hypocrisy, because most of these companies say, oh, we'll never do business in China. We'll never cater to China, but yet they cater to Pakistan. And the censorship is basically just as bad. So, China is much more of a sensitive topic that they know there'll be more backlash on. So, they try to skirt the line, but it's pretty obvious that they're just total hypocrites.
Now, one major thing that people seem to forget is that hate speech is free speech. It's protected. So when you say, let's go Brandon, or F Joe Biden, regardless of it being misinformation, whatever they want to label it, or call you a white supremacist 10 million times a day, even if you're a man of color or whatever it may be, as many of my friends have been sadly called over and over. You know, it seems to me that there's no basis of fact to shut down speech that I've had with people like Roger Stone, which, you know, they clearly don't like because it doesn't fit the narrative, but they claim it's fact when we all know it's opinion. So what would you say to those people out there who fear that your site, as it grows to say billion users, will sadly fold and fit this new communist free end of all Bill of Rights?
I mean, as I mentioned, you know, we're trying to engineer ourselves out of the equation anyway, because I don't want anyone to have to trust me or us. Like that's it. The technology should prevent that situation in the first place. And that's why, you know, peer-to-peer, open source, decentralized, distributed systems, you know, some blockchains, there's other types of systems emerging too. Like we're currently building on this this peer-to-peer database called Ceramic, and it's fully peer-to-peer. There's no one can take it down anyway. And so, you know, I don't want to have people have to trust us. That's the whole beauty of distributed systems. Is that it's trustless. However, you know, look, the US has battle tested the First Amendment for hundreds of years, and it is so arrogant to think that a tech company with like a handful of lawyers can come up with a content policy that is somehow better for society than the First Amendment. The First Amendment is the, you know, most battle tested speech policy that's ever been created. And, you know, the US is clearly, you know, the most healthy society on the planet. You know, despite, you know, some drama, there's some ugliness that comes with free and open discourse. But, you know, everyone wants to come to the US for a reason.
Usually First Amendment.
Usually First Amendment.
There's a reason when our founding fathers, when they created the Bill of Rights, why the First Amendment was the first, as opposed to the second, fourth, fifth, 12th, whatever. The point was they wanted to make sure, number one, freedom of speech and beliefs, hence religion. So for that fact that it's being attacked, as I told you before we started, is something I never dreamed would happen. I mean, it didn't take me to go to law school to know this is a major, massive problem. I mean, I knew this, I don't know, probably just pre junior high, even for that matter. Now, let's talk about Minds versus other platform. What, if any, would you compare it to? Because when people that I'm trying to bring onto Minds, and if you saw, I have dismal numbers on Minds as far as subscribers, but 60-70% of those are people that I brought, and I can't seem to retain them because they say, oh, they can't figure out how to get other people on here and convince them. And also some people say it's harder to navigate, things like that. So I used to describe it as a free speech pays you in cryptocurrency just to use it like Facebook, but it also can be like Twitter and Instagram, since you're allowed to put pictures, links, and memes, whatever you want. So
yeah, it's somewhat of a hybrid of some of the functionality. I mean, you can post videos, photos. We have this whole monetization system, both in crypto and cash payouts as well.
Which I was just gonna say, a lot of us like that because I have a lot of people that I brought on. And at first, when they received their crypto tokens, they're like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Just you could trade them for, you know, Coinbase, whatever." But now that you convert it to US dollar and allow that option, has honestly one of the greatest decisions you guys have made.
Well, we actually don't facilitate that. That's all happening on Uniswap, which is a decentralized exchange. It's an amazing technology that, you know, enables people to provide liquidity and earn rewards for that. And we reward people with advertising, free advertising for providing liquidity. I don't want to get too much into the crypto weeds, but, you know, basically, I mean, here's the thing. In terms of like convincing people, like I always try not to convince people, because as soon as you try to convince someone to do something, they just shut down and they don't want to do it. It's more so, look, if you care about free speech, if you care about privacy, if you care about not being exploited by big tech, then the only way to do that is to support platforms that are fighting against it and, actually respecting your freedom. There's us, there's a handful of others. But, follow Dr. J Radio. Is that
Dr. J Radio Live? Yeah.
Dr. J Radio Live on Minds. Follow me at Ottman, Ottman on Minds. Start it up, at least, because how do networks grow? They grow when people use them. And so, you might think, oh, it's, not a billion people aren't there. It's not worth it. But it is. Like, every check-in, every time you just check in and make a post, like, that builds the momentum. And it's going to take years for this to happen. But, these micro moves that we make, the apps that we sign into every day, the browsers that we use, all of the programs that we use are empowering different companies. So, like, don't underestimate, like, don't use Safari, don't use Chrome.
Yeah.
Like,
DuckDuckGo.
DuckDuckGo, and Brave has their own search now in the Brave browser. Use platforms that actually do respect your freedom, and it's going to be a slow, sustainable ride. But, a lot of smaller like, do you boost your content on Minds? Have you tried?
Just literally maybe 3 total in the last 3 years. One being today.
Boost more. So on Minds, for anyone who doesn't know, when you earn tokens, which are based on Ethereum blockchain, they're ERC20 tokens. So you can use those, which you earn for the engagement that you get. One token is worth 1,000 views. So you can earn a token, boost your post for more views. Also, you can stake in to the liquidity pool, and you can earn a lot of tokens that way, and you'll get promoted more just passively if you just click on the wallet. Like, that's kind of the differentiator between us and other big tech. Like, we have a lot of the functionality that we have. We just launched Minds Chat, which is an end-to-end encrypted, decentralized chat system built on top of the Matrix protocol. None of big tech messaging is encrypted. They have full access to all of your messages. So that's just a ridiculous concept that we're giving away total access to, even if they're not, directly reading it, they're scanning all of the messages and they're figuring out what to target you based on your private conversation. So, like, we really have to not comply with that and not give those companies our energy anymore. And I understand, look, we're all addicted. Like, I'm not claiming to be some saint who never uses big tech, and that, there is value. Like, was this live stream on YouTube right now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. YouTube and Twitch.
So it's just a migration. Like, we have to migrate while we can. There's no reason to trust that they're going to improve, though I hope that they do over time and ultimately see the light. But download the mobile app. I recommend people try that. Minds.com/mobile. We've got
that's what I have, actually.
You have the app, yeah. And then, but some people like to use it on web, and ultimately this is what it's all about right here. Just getting the word out. And people just are so stuck in their comfort zone of big tech. And I think that, it does feel good when you start to use apps and you feel like you're making a difference just by using them. Like, you might think it's a waste of time, but it's not. Like, even just the daily post, just, checking in once a day, like, that is the kind of thing that builds momentum. So it's not going to be an immediate flash where there's just like 1 billion people suddenly.
Yeah. It takes us to get them. I don't know if you run the Twitter for Minds, but before they, banned me and started dropping my subs or followers, maybe they removed some, I don't know, accounts. The point is at the time I, tweeted out after I joined Minds, I said, everyone join me. And I dropped the referral link. It's a free speech, uncensored platform where it pays you in crypto. And you guys, retweeted it, liked it, but it didn't take long after that before they just banned me. And again, like I was even mentioning with other creators, we fear of, is what are we working on, just going to be shut down, which I have to be honest, 8 out of the last 80% of the last 3 years of stuff is just gone. Now, when compared to, say, Frank's speech and these other newer ones, Parler, Gab, why go to Minds as opposed to those, for those people who are probably wondering?
I mean, I just am not a big fan of just creating like the red version of the blue sites.
Correct.
Personally, I feel
Yeah.
like it's just a limited view. I mean, Parler isn't even open source, so I just don't really have respect for that. They absolutely should open source. I don't think that you're really an alternative unless you're being transparent with the community about what your algorithms are doing and how your app is actually built, because the reality is that they're probably using all kinds of surveillance spyware to with their ads, and it's like, who knows, with like a lot of companies that claim to be alternatives are just using the same tricks that big tech used. And we've just really taken the stance that we're not gonna do that. It would be totally hypocritical. And look, I support everyone's right to free speech. Like, if you're a conservative or whatever, that's totally great. And but coming from the network, like the network's voice, I just sort of feel like that's kind of inappropriate for a network to be taking a political stance. I mean, I don't really place myself on the political spectrum. Like, I feel like I have a lot of libertarian philosophies, but I don't like to associate with the left or right. It's just not who I am. And I try to make sure that Minds has as neutral a tone as possible. So I think that these reactionary networks are just fueling the social sort of madness in a sense. And I think that we really need to be working on bringing the temperature down a little bit. I mean, I understand people have plenty of valid political complaints, but I feel like I can't even keep up with all of these like Trump networks that are emerging. He just did the whole Truth Social thing is pretty funny, because they actually forked Mastodon, which is another open source social platform, and they like violated the terms of the license. They were like keeping it secret when they forked it. And so, but it's a little bit tone deaf that they did that. And I think it would be great if Trump joined.
Yeah.
Would obviously never ban him. I would love Trump and Biden to duke it out on Minds. That would be hilarious and amazing. So we welcome all sides, and I just I'm into just like the weirdness and the craziness of society. I want to see the conspiracy theories. I want to see everybody's idea. That's the fun stuff. That's the meat. The thing about the fringe is that, yeah, sure, you're going to have some bad ideas on the fringe, but you're also going to have, in terms of social evolution, like some of the greatest ideas are coming from the fringe. So even if a lot of it is nonsense, it still has a right to exist. It shouldn't be banned. And throughout the evolution of technology and all the breakthroughs that humanity has come to, people are called insane when they at first. I mean, the Wright brothers were called insane. Like, this is really basic. So when you have AI just going psycho and banning everything just within certain keywords, that is so risky and damaging to our culture, because there's stuff in there that is really important, and those people don't have an audience. They don't have any recourse. They're just gone. They're ostracized, and we're losing a lot of really important people from the global conversation when big tech is just kind of being lazy.
I'm glad you said you're not just making a right version of blue sites, because that's super important, because you would only be catering to one side. The fact is remaining neutral and allowing both sides of discourse, conversation, and really what I see far more intelligent debates on Minds is one of the other reasons I like it. I wouldn't want to be stuck in a right only or Republican only platform, because I want to see the other side. And not to mention, yeah, I may be considered conservative, but I have a lot of libertarian views as well. Now, let's go into a couple more things because I honestly don't think we're going to be able to get through all the questions today because some of them, some people who couldn't be here today sent me literally a list of them. So let me just try to pick and choose some of the key ones. First of all, you have multiple upgrade options for your account on Minds. Minds Pro, Minds Plus. Am I missing a third one?
No.
Okay. Can you tell people what the benefits of the two are?
Yeah. So Minds Plus particularly, I'm really excited about it. Yeah. The analogy that I make to more easily absorb it is, imagine if Netflix paid you out every month if you when you upload it, and you could upload your own films, and based on the performance of those films, Netflix was actually giving you a cut of their membership revenue. So that's what Minds Plus is. Like, we take 25% of the revenue that we get, and then we proportionally distribute that to the creators and users who upload content into the exclusive Minds Plus feed. So on your main navigation in Minds, you'll see an item that's called Minds Plus, and the feed looks like, it looks like the normal free, open discovery feed, but everyone who's in Minds Plus are the only people who have access to look at that feed and post into it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like we're taking this big pool of revenue, and there's a couple other perks you get from Minds Plus as well. Like, you can turn off boosts, so you don't have to see them in your feed. You can, get verified, and there's a handful of other perks, but it's really like we want to share our revenue with the community. So that's what Minds Plus is. And then Minds Pro gives you the ability to create more of a custom landing page on your channel that's with a subdomain, and you get some more video storage, and you can also get monetized just for the page views that you bring to the site. So yeah, that's kind of the distinction. But I think that the membership is so important to the sustainability of the network, and we saw actually Twitter is now just rolling out Twitter Blue.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Well, it's like, a few bucks a month, and they give you like the ability to, it's very limited. Like, you can undo retweets or posts. I forget exactly what it does. But the point being, not that I care about what Twitter's doing, but seeing a major big tech network bring in a membership system is actually a big deal. Because I think that it's starting to be more undeniable that memberships are more sustainable, because if you don't have memberships, then that's when networks start to get pressured to surveil in order to target ads. So we never would do that. But we do, need to become a sustainable business. And, for the people who do support us monthly, minds.com/plus, we want to give back some of that revenue to the creators who are really, helping drive attention.
And I'm one of those, not plus, but a pro support. No, not a pro. I think a plus, actually.
Pro. Yeah. I mean, honestly, Plus is sort of more the focus right now. Pro's definitely more expensive, and you need a lot of traffic to kind of make that worth it. But I think that So
hypothetically, if I got Pro and I got 20,000 people that are on YouTube, which is the only thing I've left, two Minds, and something that people here don't know, because I asked you this prior to us starting, that you are working towards the end goal of allowing people to stream on Minds. Would that be the benefit at that point, to have that Minds Pro account?
Yeah, I mean, look, as much as we can make free, we want to make free. Once we bring in live streaming, like I would want that honestly to be accessible to everyone. Minds Pro is more so about like a monetization perk. Gotcha. But yeah, it's definitely something that we're working on. I hope that we can get it out next year, and at the minimum, just a way to push something like this in. Are you currently, is this getting pushed to multiple places or just YouTube right now?
No, it's on YouTube, and I just added Twitch, and I ran out of time to add Rumble for today, but I'm going to add that on. So it's going to be on 3 things, but obviously I wouldn't mind replacing Twitch with Minds. when
Yeah,
your guys are ready.
You want to be able to blast out as far and wide as you can. So I think, I'm definitely going to make a good push to get that out next year as soon as possible.
Excellent. Yeah. And as soon as you do, I promise you, Jaffe Ryder, myself, and some others in this chat, I told you there are some friends who are also creators, one of them being the world's largest UFO YouTube channel, which I'll give you the announcement of what you just did to them.
Oh, yeah. No, you mean about how I love
verification?
aliens?
Yeah. They
Oh,
got
yeah.
the blue check mark.
Oh, yeah. We just verified the third
Blake
phase.
and Brent out there, I know you're watching and hearing this right now. He just verified you, so you got the legendary blue check mark next to third phase of moon on mine.
Oh, yeah. Let's get the UFO community, ripping more on Mars. We have a bunch of them. I've had some really good talks with Richard Dolan before.
Yeah. Have you seen the last 10 or 15 interviews I've done?
Yeah, I know. I saw it on your channel.
Okay, cool. So I'm so glad that we're on the same page, because originally I wasn't even going to talk about UFOs. One other thing before I go into UFOs, and then obviously if you're enjoying this, we could do this again and we can go into the other people's questions that sent me before. So let's just say I want to get more tokens, but I don't have the engagement of users to follow me, vote at my activity. What's it going to stop if I create 20 more accounts and just use all those to vote up, remind, and comment on my main post? I'm still going to earn tokens, right?
Well, that we have a unique, only unique engagement counts towards the tokens that you earn. So you can't just make accounts and vote on your own. Yeah. We have a mechanism against that. The best way to earn tokens is to become a liquidity provider, which I'll just quickly explain this. It's actually really interesting. So, Ethereum is the second largest cryptocurrency and blockchain. It allows many of the, the Brave, the BAT token is based on Ethereum. A lot of other tokens are based on Ethereum. So Uniswap is a decentralized exchange that basically enables you to swap different Ethereum-based tokens for each other. So you could swap mines for Ethereum, or Ethereum for mines, or mines to BAT and BAT to mines. But it has it's basically this robot. And so when you become a liquidity provider, you stake in the equivalent amount of mines tokens in Ethereum, and anyone can do that. And when you do that, you earn fees on all the swaps. And that pool of tokens that people are staking in is creating the market for the pair, so that when someone comes and they want to swap one to the other, those assets are like locked in this smart contract. And so what we do is we reward through Minds.com tokens for doing that on top of the fees that you're earning on Uniswap. So, when you go to your wallet on Minds, you'll see this little button that says provide liquidity. And when you click that button, this modal will pop up.
Provide liquidity.
So that's where the best token rewards are. And so then you'll get a lot of tokens. You can boost your content more. And as I mentioned, we really boost up all of the liquidity providers. And this may sound like sort of far out for people who aren't familiar with crypto, but crypto really is becoming the unstoppable new financial system and open global infrastructure. So I recommend people start learning about it, because it's disrupting, most industries.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's El Salvador that recently adopted that as their national currency. And we both know Elon Musk put $50 billion investment into Bitcoin, which
not 50 billion. No.
Oh, what was it?
I think it was like a 1.5 billion.
Okay. Either way, that's $1 billion.
I think he's maybe worth 50 billion. I don't know.
But he's worth as of today like 220.
220. Wow.
Yeah, he's actually surpassed.
But the El Salvador news is absolutely incredible. And they just launched this new concept called Bitcoin City, where there's no taxes across the board except for a sales tax. And then they're doing these like Bitcoin bonds, and they're getting the whole country into Bitcoin. It's really like, most people don't even know that that's happening. But, you know, if you want to be ahead of the curve, Bitcoin is the future. I mean, what other network attracts, you know, both communists and libertarians? I mean, particularly libertarians, obviously, because the cypherpunks are like crypto libertarians.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, typically El Salvador has been, you know, like the fact that it would attract El Salvador and it also attracts all of these other authoritarian countries. I mean, some people would call that a negative thing, but and you know, obviously there's abuse that happens in crypto in the same way that there's massive abuse that happens in fiat and fraud and, you know, money laundering. And, you know, whether you're in fiat or crypto, you're never going to avoid crime. So, you know, but the point being that Bitcoin attracts everybody because it is fair and it's decentralized and no single party can influence it. So I think that the systems, the technological systems that attract enemies together, like that's incredibly powerful.
Let me ask a quick question about the tokens. They're Ethereum based. Does that mean as the price of Ethereum goes up, it affects the price of your tokens? Because I've just noticed since yesterday, they went up from like about $2 a token to like 272, 274 today.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I personally am not, you know, I don't really comment on the price much. It's sort of like this. I focus more on the utility that they have on mines. You know, there is this market that, and I think it's sort of a beautiful thing that the community can sort of, there can be this free market pricing of it. But, you know, I think that when you stake in, you know, you're staking in both Ethereum and mines. So, you know, you're getting exposure to both. They're not, you know, there's just because Ethereum goes up doesn't necessarily mean that mines goes up, but like, you know, the crypto market is sort of like this super organism. So, you know, when Bitcoin goes up, you know, Ethereum goes up. Yeah. And it's just sort of this Borg that moves together. And, you know, there's definitely lots of scams out there. So you have to be really careful and diligent. It's not, I don't know. It's, I pretty much just stick to Bitcoin and Ethereum just because.
Me too. And Litecoin. I have one.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me give a shout out real quick to Jackie O. Thank you for your super chat. And Third Phase of Moon response to what you did for them, verify. And they said, whoa, in caps. Thanks, Bill. So now I'm going to take this time to transition to a topic, which honestly, I didn't think we'd cover today until I found out how cool you are and are interested in ufology. So when did you first get interested in ETs, ufology, Space Force, etc.?
Forever. I mean, how can you not be interested in it? Yeah. And by the way, Third Phase of the Moon, definitely start posting more. Let's get the most current UFO stuff. I'll give it a share, whatever. But like, you know, all of this stuff with like Christopher Mellon recently is
Lou Elizondo.
I think that we've entered like a whole new wave of legitimacy, which is, it just makes talking about it so much easier because, you know, 10 years ago, I was still into it. And there was still so, I mean, you know, Richard Dolan's books, all the historical books. I mean, there's been verifiable declassified information out there for a really long time. So it's not like people were just, you know, talking nonsense before, but you can't ignore it. I mean, and sometimes I feel it's just insane every day I don't pay attention to it. I feel like I'm in some kind of a trance where, well, wait a second, this is going on. We're not really getting clear answers. And yet I'm just going about my day, like not worrying about that. Like I want to know, I don't want to die not knowing what is going on with UFOs, because it really gets at the heart of why we're here on this planet. And I feel like if we have the opportunity to get access to information that can give us a better understanding of ourselves, I think that that's what disclosure is ultimately about.
Yeah.
It's about understanding who we are as a species. And, as like Ronald Reagan said, nothing would bring humanity together probably more so than an alien invasion.
Yes.
Independence Day sort of, depicts that in an awesome way, where and other ET movies do as well. But I think it's pretty true. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm curious what you think what is the most breaking news that's happened since some of the I know that there was a committee that was put together.
Yeah. So obviously, I had Lou Elizondo on in early July, and his manager obviously deals with Christopher Mellon, and that whole group of people who at one point worked for Tom DeLonge to the Stars Academy and have left to sort of do their own thing. They are actively working on disclosure. There's something I could say so in private that I can't say here now of what's
you're part of the game.
Yeah, but I can honestly tell you is that they're looking at the broader way to take this to the people and sort of bypass those who still have a vested interest in keeping this hidden. Who, in your personal opinion, or just throughout your life, in ufology made the biggest impact as far as to your belief that, hey, it's possibly real, that we've been visited forever?
I would say, I mean, obviously, the Disclosure Project was a big deal as one of the original conferences that brought a lot of the military whistleblowers to the forefront.
Wait, are you talking about the 2013 citizens hearing on disclosure?
No,
where they
was actually before that. This was
Greer's in
yeah,
90.
And then the citizen hearing was huge. I've talked to Steve Bassett a couple times, and he's he's always in the trenches fighting the good fight.
Amen for him. Great.
And he's really dedicated. And then all of these recent videos that Elizondo has helped bring out, I think have had a huge impact. I mean, personally, I don't know. There's so many people, and I would honestly have to brush up. Edgar Mitchell had an impact on me.
Me too.
I think he was really like a real dude who seemed to be trying to get the word out there. But there is God, I watched this interview that kind of got in my head the other day. Valuetainment. Have you heard of that?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Pat David.
Yeah. And he interviewed the guy who Buzz Aldrin punched him in the face. Who was like critical of the moon landing.
Yeah.
I think he made a documentary.
The same guy who showed up to Edgar Mitchell's house, and Edgar Mitchell.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's why that got in my head, because I think that there are obviously anomalies about that, but for him I forget the guy's name, but for him to bring Edgar Mitchell's legitimacy, that got in my head a little bit, because I do think that there's some good questions and some weird PR that was going on around the moon landing.
Yeah.
But I don't think Edgar Mitchell would lie about that.
In the last year and a half of his life, I honestly probably interviewed him more than anyone, at least some months, sometimes twice. And I believe everything he says, because aside from the interviews, we probably spent 10 more times just talking on the phone. And, he's never said anything inconsistent to me or lying to me. The things that he couldn't comment on, he sort of just said, hey, I can't say this. Okay. Now, this is a great question from Third Phase of the Moon, which actually links mines and UFOs. Says, can you see it, by the way? I put it right up on the main screen. If you can, I'll just read it to you. Okay, go for it.
Okay, why do you think major platforms are afraid of the UFO topic?
Yeah.
I haven't actually heard. Has there been a lot of censorship that's happened around UFOs?
80% of my UFO videos seem to be demonetized as well, whether it be Richard Dolan, Stanton Friedman, Eric Von Doniken, Linda Moulton Howe. Makes no sense.
It really doesn't make sense, because I think that UFOs have this great quality about them where everybody is secretly fascinated by it, I think. And so, you know, I think that it's probably just getting lumped into the algorithms with some of the other conspiracies. You know, I don't personally, like, I try not to, there's definitely conspiracy going on. But I mean, I know people who are pretty high up in a lot of big tech companies, and I've never really, because UFOs are political, but they're also not really like a left or right issue. One of the things that really impacted me was learning about Podesta and Hillary Clinton's fascination by the UFO topic. You know, there's that famous photo of her walking with him carrying the UFO book.
And with Rockefeller at that same photo.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and you know, the interviews where Jimmy Kimmel confronts Hillary and Bill Clinton and Obama, you know, that's like the one good thing that Jimmy Kimmel actually does is he he asks them all about aliens on his show, and you see them actually taking it really seriously. And then, you know, the right is sort of thinking that it's important too. So I don't actually see it as like a divisive issue where big tech would be, you know, getting political on it. I don't know the answer to that. But I also haven't heard of just like mass banning from it, like maybe demonetized just because it's getting thrown into a conspiracy bucket, but in which is, you know, super unfortunate. But I want to hope that, you know, if the big tech doesn't want to ban the issue, because it's a very human issue. It doesn't feel like something that is that divisive. I don't know.
It's not a partisan issue. That's why, you know, several people feel safe talking about that, because that shit's a no-brainer. It's a uniting issue instead of a dividing issue. So just the fact that that's been under attack, maybe it's personally my account, just because I've covered, you know, I started with UFOs, but if you see the diversity of the topics I've done on this, I've had magicians, like I said, federal agents, you name it. And it may just be because they didn't like certain people I interviewed or the topics, and that's possibly why
I think that's actually most likely. So you know, what happens is once you make an infraction and get flagged for one thing, you're kind of screwed long term. You know, they'll start punishing you for things that aren't related to that necessarily, and they'll just start shadow banning you for everything just because you did one bad thing. So it's not necessarily as a lot of the AI is dumb. It's just, you know, throwing you into a bucket once you've triggered a certain keyword, or, you know, you've made a connection with someone that they deem to be undesirable. And obviously this whole system is super deranged and just horrible for society, that, you know, it's basically, it's just punishing you for interacting with people who have controversial ideas. And that is just insane. Like I will never let anyone tell me that somebody is too controversial to talk to. I'll talk to somebody, you know, I'll talk to an authoritarian leader. I'll talk to, you know, somebody, you know, a murderer in prison. You know, I'll talk to whoever I want to talk to. And just because I talk to somebody doesn't mean that I support everything that they're saying. And I think that, you know, the same should apply in social media. Like, you shouldn't be punished just for following or discussing something that's controversial. So, you know, we definitely are not, you know, engaged in any of this, this shadow banning or anything like that, obviously.
Which is, again, a main reason I keep advocating for people to leave, as I call Facebook migration, which I picked up from other people using mines. And that's why I said that 3 years ago on Twitter before I lost the account. But although what you said makes completely sense of why my stuff would be shadow banned, Blake and Brent from Third Phase of the Moon, really, that's all they focus on is UFOs because it's safe. Yet they're the ones who asked that question. So do you feel that there are other people or companies out there of big tech that is shutting down topics for any other reason? Because like you said, there seems to be no reason to shut this down. If they want to shut down political talk, that's what they're censoring now. But why shut down UFOs?
I think that it gets into the conspiracy bucket, and the conspiracy bucket gets into the misinformation bucket. And so I think that there's just this, guilt by association type thing that hopefully will change over time. But I'm sure that they have this web of keywords in their blacklisting algorithm. And once you touch one, you're just in and you can't get out. So, hopefully, I think, we can advocate to remove UFO and all the different terminology associated with it from these misinformation buckets. But, this gets into the heart of the issue that we don't know what they're shadow banning. So the key thing with the transparency, it's like they're not being upfront with the users about what the actual rules are. Like you don't know. They just have these vague terms of service misinformation, which is whatever that they might want it to be. But guess what? They have very specific words and different phrases that are punishing people. So,
and they're ever changing. That it's what was posted yesterday. Well, it may have new words posted today of what you can't speak about.
Yeah, and like Podesta, for instance. I mean, Podesta, you couldn't have a guy who is more in the web of conspiracies. I mean, because he, there's all the conspiracy theories about the whole, pizza thing with him, and that gets connected to the UFOs, and so but if you're talking about the pizza stuff, then that's like another level of, that's probably a riskier area to talk about than UFOs.
Pizza you're mentioning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Of course. That's something I would never even bring up because I know it's too controversial.
Exactly. And how scary is that? That like, I'm not, giving any validity or not to that topic, but it's like, whose fault is, look, emails got published and people went through them, and how is that the user's fault? I mean, just let people talk about it. It's I don't know. It's really damaging when the conversation, this chilling effect that happens when you're talking. And like, I even feel it a little bit right now in this conversation. And like you mentioned, like, oh, I wouldn't even have brought that up. And you have to be able to approach any topic and not be scared to bring things up because you're afraid you're going to lose your livelihood. I mean, that's what this is all about, because, you guys are all out there trying to make a living streaming, and it's great to be able to do that, to have like independent power to create content and do what you love, talk about what you love talking about, and not have to work a job that you hate. And just this idea that you could say a word and that it would ruin all that, it's really scary. But that's the very type of fear which holds society back from getting to the truth about something like UFOs or like whatever conspiracy, because when you're scared that you're going to lose your livelihood for talking about it, you'll stop talking about it.
Yeah. And that's I felt that I've been restricted on, say, maybe passing up a guest who 3 years ago I would have gladly put on, like Jerome Corsi, great friend of mine. I haven't had him on for 3 years because I know that'll be labeled a misinformationist and all sorts of that. It's just really frustrating. Now, let me ask you about your personal opinions on AI. Elon Musk warns us that once you let the genie out of the bottle, we're in trouble. And he said this is one thing that he advocates for regulations. And as a libertarian yourself and me as a libertarian conservative who really dislikes big government. I advocate for less regulations and stuff. I agree with him. He said it took 10 years for cars to have regulations for seatbelts. We don't have 10 years with AI. So what's your take on, should we pursuing these quantum computers that have the ability to teach themselves, have the same type of intelligence that we do within like minutes, and then surpass us by the end of the day?
I don't think that we have a choice. I think that you'll never stop people from building the craziest stuff that they can think of.
Yeah.
People are going to try to create AI. People are going to push barriers in every industry. And so, but I do think that, the type of regulation that would be good would be to keep everything open and transparent. Because what is terrifying to me is, and that's why Elon started OpenAI, which is nonprofit kind of focused on ethical AI. And then Max Tegmark, who's a AI specialist at MIT, also institute for, I forget what his institute is called, but it's let me bring it up. Let's see. He is the Future of Life Institute.
Okay.
And he has a institute that is specifically focused on, making sure AI doesn't take over the world. So it's totally valid fear. I do not want one of those Boston Dynamics things getting programmed by a, violent AI program and, having one of those little cheetahs, attack me running down the street. So, and, you just imagine those devices with a fully automatic weapon on them. And that is the most terrifying thing you could ever imagine. I mean, that is Terminator.
Yeah, I know, right?
So, yeah.
Someone asked a question here, which I just answered because you essentially did answer earlier. Hector Hernandez says, every time I hear about a free speech platform, I ask who's free speech, the left or the right? I just put, like you said earlier, all free speech, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that this whole idea that free speech is a political issue is actually a false argument, and is sort of has become more popular because there is this contingent of people who are, have this authoritarian take on speech and think that all misinformation should be banned, and, anything offensive should be banned. But like, classical liberals, old school progressives, they believe in free speach.
Yeah.
So that's why you'll see people like Jonathan Haidt and Bill Maher and, these types of people who, they get it. They're still on the left, but they're not going to stop defending free speech because they know how important it is. This more radical element of the left has emerged, which, thinks that that shutting down conversation works, but it doesn't work. So yeah, it's definitely, free speech for everyone. And, we're about to release a paper, actually, we've been working on for almost a year with multiple PhDs, and we've been bringing together all of the peer-reviewed evidence that censorship actually causes violence and extremism. So, big tech has this talking point that they're making their network safer by banning this content. But actually what you're doing, think about, I mean, how it feels to get demonetized. You know how it feels to get banned. I know how it feels. I mean, mine's was for a long time on Facebook. You couldn't even post a Minds link in the messenger. It would just say, this is unsafe. And it would give you this like CAPTCHA. And we've been banned from the Play Store before. We've navigated it, but it makes you depressed when you get banned. I mean, it brings your whole psychology gets messed up. And it in the case of YouTube, there was one instance of a woman who got banned, and she actually, and this is not YouTube's fault for her doing this, but she went and shot 2 people in YouTube HQ.
Yeah. I remember that story.
People go off the deep end when they get banned because they're losing their communication ability with their community.
And livelihood.
So, if you want to radicalize someone, ban them. So big tech is saying, oh, we're making the world safer, but actually they're making the internet more divided and polarized. And there's lots of data that proves this is true. So I bring this up all the time because all the people claiming that, this controversial speech needs to get banned, they're making the world more insane and polarized and extreme. They're actually long-term going to be causing more violence and more depression and more suicide and more of all of these, really harmful byproducts. So, we're excited to bring that together and publish it because this information really just isn't out there. For instance, recently with the whole Chappelle special, getting, lashed out on Netflix, and everyone saying that, his special is like violent. People are complaining, and Jonathan Haidt has I talk about him all the time, but, emotional discomfort is necessary. And emotional discomfort because you're seeing an idea that you disagree with, that is not violence.
No, it's not. If anything, it's intelligent, debate. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
If anything, it helps you grow.
No, you have to undergo that emotional discomfort in order to grow. I mean, pain is always, a certain degree of pain and discomfort is necessary for growth in any area. I mean, whether it's a physical or mental activity. So I think that I'm really excited by this research because I want to give everybody the link that they need. Anytime someone says that we need to, make the community safer, drop this link with like dozens of studies showing how censorship causes violence and more extremism. And it's like, actually, no, you're making an emotional argument that has no data behind it. And, big tech, just like, they don't have any data, and you would think that they would understand the data.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, that's what makes me think that big tech is ideologically driven from the highest orders, because I think that they actually do know about this data and they just ignore it. I mean, they want to play the PR game,
but they're not very good at it.
Well, people don't leave. So
True.
It's they know that they have everybody strangled by the followers. And this is why, I guess one of the last things I want to mention is this idea of Web3, which is really coming out. And so Web 1 was like, original old school, like everyone kind of running their own email servers. And Web 1 was largely like decentralized. And then we got into Web 2 with Facebook, Twitter, Google, and everyone went into like a handful of silos, which had many benefits and brought us this new level of user experience. And, I'm not going to say that there's nothing good about Web 2. But now we're moving more towards Web 3, and that's where crypto is becoming a big deal. And your crypto address becomes your identity, and you can actually log into sites just with your crypto wallet. And, all of your content is associated with your crypto wallet and your, NFTs, and you've got your portability with your finances, your identity, your content, and you take that with you. And that's all of those assets are stored on blockchains and other distributed systems like IPFS. And so, if you want to leave, you leave, and you take everything with you wherever you go. We're trying to reverse the dynamic where, the network doesn't control the users control the network, and the users are fully incentivized financially. And that's just where things are going. And, the UX is going to take a little while to improve, but this is ultimately what we're trying to build.
Well, there's a couple questions that, since we're already past the time,
Cool.
I'll just go ahead and say
I can go like 10 more minutes.
Oh, okay. Is it true when President Trump held a social media summit that invited you, that none of the other FANG group showed up? Facebook, Apple, Amazon. I don't know what the N is.
That is
Google.
true. I didn't see them there. And
what a disgrace.
yeah, no, for sure. And I think that unfortunately that I don't think also, I don't know how explicit his invites to them were. I do sort of wish he had done a better job of inviting more people on the left who had been affected by censorship. You know, now we're seeing people like Glenn Greenwald and Matt Taibbi, and you know, there's a whole sort of contingent of progressives who are very anti-censorship. And I think that it's really a good idea for conservatives to embrace that more and you know, not turn the censorship thing into purely a political argument, because I think that there is tons of evidence that anti-authoritarians on both sides of the political spectrum are getting censored. There's even, you know, ironically, a lot of like LGBTQ trans content that gets censored. And so, you know, you have a lot of, and this is why you have people like Blair White, who's trans, who's very anti-censorship. And there are a lot of people in that community who understand, you know, Evan Greer from Fight for the Future, who's trans, who is very anti-censorship. And because they know the dangers that it poses for everybody. And so I think for the progressives and the conservatives and, you know, for everyone who believes in free speech to kind of come together, you know, we need to find the issues that we can work together on. And it's just, it's pretty obvious. So I think that there's this small but loud, I think most people actually support free speech, but the group of anti-speech people are so loud and they make it seem like they have so much power and reach, but they actually don't have that much reach. It's sort of like the mainstream, well, the legacy media more so, who just keeps pushing this narrative, but it's just not true. There's no data or evidence behind it. And I think eventually they'll just sort of realize, like, wait a second, why was I saying that? Like, what benefit was that bringing to me for pushing to ban all of this content? I don't know. I'm optimistic.
The person, a viewer, aka listener, who was not able to be here today, did send some questions. You've actually answered a lot of them, without even asked a question. So let me just get to some of the ones, because I know he's going to hear this after or watch it after. Again, some of these are pretty basic because this is coming from someone who just subscribed to me and opened his account a few weeks ago. How fast is your site growing, by the way?
It's growing. We're like over 6 million users now.
And you were at like 1.5, 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. No, it's all steady, sustainable growth. But you know, part of the struggle is that because we're not willing to use the dirty surveillance tricks that big tech use to grow, and honestly that a lot of other alternative social networks use, we do sort of make it a little bit harder for ourselves to grow, because, you know, when you use those surveillance tools, you really can grow faster because you target better, because you can reach into everybody's contact book and you know, without any consent. And so we're not willing to do that. And so it's definitely makes things go slower, but that's okay. I mean, we're in it for the long game, and we've just been steadily growing over the years, and we're just not going to sacrifice our principles to, you know, for a little bit of short-term growth. And, you know, a lot of the growth waves that we see are just like dramatic and huge. We had this huge surge from Vietnam and Thailand, where like in just a period of like a few days, it was like millions of users. And this is an important point. In other authoritarian countries, like, they are so flabbergasted by the lack of respect for free speech in the US, because they just, to them, you know, they actually have authoritarian governments who will put them in jail for speaking out against the government.
Yeah.
And so for that, when they look at, you know, the entitled, you know, spoiled people in the US who are trying to get rid of free speech, which is like the absolutely most foundational fundamental right that we have, they're just so confused by us. And so, that's just a really important frame of reference when people feel like, oh, is hate speech, should that be illegal? Or, should misinformation be illegal? Like, yeah, it really can be dangerous. Like, no, just stop. Just think about people who are living in authoritarian regimes, and just remember that, and the conversation is over.
It's true. You're absolutely right. And I really hope people start to think about those terms, because those who are advocating for censorship are not shadow banned like the rest of us are. Okay. This is kind of a basic question, but again, from a new user wants to know that when they create a group, is it automatically default public or private?
Public by default.
Okay. But you could make it private.
Yeah, you can make it private. I would, if you're trying to make a group, I would really recommend using the Minds chat room function. So if you click chat in the main nav, or you would need to download the Minds chat app, that actually has end-to-end encrypted rooms, private rooms, which are much, in my opinion, more functional and better than we have two group functions. So we have like the groups that are more similar to Facebook groups, but then we have groups which are more like, chat rooms or like Telegram. So I would recommend getting Mind Chat and using the rooms function on there.
Well, I seem to have been caught up, at least for today so far. This is honestly a super pleasure, and thank you for giving us insight. Just throughout this, I see about 20 people have already opened Minds accounts, and
that's awesome.
I'm sure hopefully after that more will go. And once we do this again next time, I'll make sure we could set something up where we can get Third Phase Immune to actively use that account, because if we could import those 800,000 people to Minds, we're all of a sudden going to have the largest UFO group on any social media platform. So with that being said, hang by for a quick second, I'd like you to plug in anything relevant where people can find you and whatever you want to say.
Yeah, for sure. I've got my username here. Find me at Ottman on Minds. Definitely hit me up, shoot me a message. Like, I want to help. I'm accessible. I really try to differentiate myself from other CEOs, in that, I actually will respond to you if you hit me up. And get the mobile apps, get set up on your web app as well. And I just can't underestimate how much of a difference it makes to just participate a little bit when you can. Don't feel like it's useless or a waste of time, even if you're not seeing immediate reach, because just all of those small movements together are what are going to, make an alternative jump into the mainstream. And we want all of the weird creative stuff that you have to offer. We have a great art community on Minds, a great music community, obviously a lot of journalism and commentary. And, in terms of the alien stuff, like let's bring it to the forefront of the conversation. I mean, what needs to get talked about more than that? Like, let's get Elizondo and Mellon
I'll book them for once you open that streaming live. I will book them and I will have you on the show if you want to ask them questions, as opposed to just writing them in chat.
I mean, because just imagine if big tech took these issues seriously from the top down. I mean, if Twitter or Google or Facebook wanted to bring Chris Mellon and Elizondo on and, feature it and get to the truth, like, they could.
Yeah.
They could just, if I was at the helm of Google, I would just, have an ongoing 24/7 live stream conversation pressuring the government to get the documents out.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's like we have the attention of the world, but it's just sort of being wasted. It's like, let's get to the heart of these issues quickly. And it's just, with these committees, and it's all the process of, and I'm not just talking about UFOs, it's freedom of information and access to information in general. I mean, I was looking, I think like the JFK, CIA killed JFK has been trending all day on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, regardless of what you think happened there, the fact is that the government and probably corporations too are sitting on information that is just not being shared.
Yep.
And so let's just bring the information to the surface and use the resources that we have to do that. And it seems like I try to honestly give away the blueprints to big tech. Like whichever big tech company starts to get transparent and, not censor and sort of do what we're doing, like they're going to be the big tech company that people actually like and trust. But none of them are doing it for some reason. It seems so obvious.
But fortunately, you are, and so is the rest of your team at Minds. And again, that's why at the very beginning I thanked you, because I don't fear posting on Minds. And if anything, I know that when I post something and people read it, it's usually people of higher intelligence that don't immediately flip out and jump into a safe space. So with that being said, like I said, hang by for a quick second. Thank you so very much for giving us this opportunity for us to ask you questions. And let's make Minds the #1 platform. Everybody out there, you've dropped the referral link multiple times throughout this. It'll be in the description after, along with a way for you to connect with Bill and subscribe to his channel on Minds. And once the streaming is open, everybody, I will be there. And we'll work with Third Phase of Moon on there as well. So with that being said, let me tell you, I have a special for you for Thanksgiving. I have Eric von Däniken. Because he's in his late 80s and in Switzerland, I don't know if it's going to be live on Thanksgiving morning at 1 a.m. Pacific time, or if I'm actually just going to record it and drop it on Thanksgiving. So that is my present to you for Thanksgiving. With that being said, everybody else, unless I don't stream before that day, you all have a happy Thanksgiving. In the meantime, Mr. Ottman and I are signing out.
Thanks for having me.